Sure. Can you see my screen okay? So yeah, as Prof mentioned, we're a startup that was born out of the lab at the University of Michigan, the Sustainable Automation Lab out of the School of Engineering. And we're primarily focused on providing software solutions in the additive manufacturing space. Right now, specifically, our team is focused on providing the fastest, highest quality, and lowest cost 3D printing, working with some of the existing OEMs in the industry. On the team, of course, now we have the 12 of us on the call, Prof. Chi and myself. I have a background in commercialization of higher ed research projects. I also spent some time doing consulting, specifically working with different types of technology service providers and helping them with their go-to-market strategy. We also had David, who joined our team recently, and he has a lot of expertise in the devices space. He also has a lot of community reach, and we also have Sam, who joined our team just this year, and he's going to be heading up some of our technical efforts. Working in collaboration with the three of us. So why focus on the additive manufacturing industry? The additive manufacturing industry has been around for a very long time, but has only recently seen a significant amount of growth in the last 5 years. It's been, growing at a compound average growth rate of over 20%. And in the next 5 to 6 years, the size of the industry is expected to even double. And this is really an opportunity. And because of it's still, on the one hand, it's been around, the industry has been around for a while, but hasn't really seen a lot of technological development and momentum, but it's now really going into that phase. One of the major problems or whatever, one of the major pain points with the additive manufacturing industry is the low speed compared to other manufacturing processes. So specifically now with 3D printers, they take an exceptionally long time compared to our other methods like injection molding. It can take several hours or days, or people might be printing a set of parts for months to make one complete object. Another, what happens when people try to push their printers to print faster is that they end up introducing defects into the part, or the part loses the quality that they were hoping for. So our solution really focuses on addressing some of those issues, and I'll turn it over to Prof. Chi to describe a little more about the technical details behind our work on the solution.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yep. All right. So yeah, this problem, just like Sam was mentioning, one of the reasons why 3D printers struggle to go faster is because, just like if you try to push machines or really anything very fast, then you begin to vibrate. And this problem is not only for 3D printers. As you can see here, this is a problem that you see in all kinds of other manufacturing machines, from the high-end machines and robots and all that stuff, right? And so this was really where the motivation came from. And this happened when before I joined the University of Michigan, I worked for one of the largest manufacturer of high-end, they call them machine tools, high-end manufacturing machines. And one of the problems we had there was that we were making this $500,000 machine that you see is schematic here. And then, as we tried to move it faster so that we could get more out of the machine, we'll have a lot of vibration, which really damaged the quality of the parts we wanted. So we had two options. One of them was to slow down, but that brings the problem that Sam just mentioned. Or the other one is we try to make the machine beefier, but that comes at a lot of cost and weight and other things that we just could not afford. And so that's where the idea came while I was in industry, and I brought that to the university, was, can we do this entirely through software. Then we don't have to deal with any weight. Hopefully the cost of doing this will be much lower. And that's really what led to our idea. And this idea is an algorithm, what is a software algorithm we call FPS, but I won't go into the technical details, but let me just give you a high level view of what it does. It's really just, it kind of tricks the machine to do what you want it to do. So let me give you an example. Say you want this machine to go straight, but because of vibration, it begins to veer up like you see here. Then what we do in our software is we give the machine a command to go down, and then as it tries to follow this this downward command, it ends up going straight, which is what we really wanted it to do. So in this way, we're tricking the machine to actually do what we want to do, and that's how we compensate for the vibration that the machine experiences. And this allows us now to push the machines really fast, but not run into the kind of quality issues that we experience. And this has given us an advantage, even though it came from kind of this heavy industry. We've looked at it and seen a lot of applications in 3D printing to speed up things. So we've shown with the low-cost desktop 3D printers that with our software, without having to change anything, you can push the machines 2 times faster and still get very good quality. And for some industrial grade machines, we're able to do this at 10x faster without losing quality. And so these are just some examples of some partners that we're either working with or looking to work with. And so these some just examples here. So this is one made with your typical low-cost 3D printers, and you can see how with our software we're able to get actually slightly better quality, but at significantly faster rate. And then the same thing here. This is an example where without our software, if you try to print faster, you get very poor quality, but with our software, you can get very good quality, but at half the time it takes to print it with the regular software. So here is a very short video about our software, and I guess I have to, well, let's see. So this is a printer printing without our software, and you can visibly see how it's vibrating, right? You can see, hopefully, how it's vibrating. But then with our software, the same printer with nothing changed, no slowing down, you can see how it's able to print without that vibration. And so it's able to get very good quality. And that's why we can print fast and still maintain very good quality. So I'll pass it back to Sam to just talk about our go-to-market and business strategy. Yes, I should stop sharing. Sam, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So earlier on in our existence, we tried a few different models in terms of how can we deliver this effectively to the market. And what we eventually decided through some trial and error with the service providers and the community was to sort of use this bottom-up approach where we engage with some of the the lower cost desktop 3D OEMs who are sort of hungry for that innovation. As I mentioned earlier, the market is in a very delicate stage where it's growing rapidly. There's some consolidation. There's a lot of new startups entering the space, and they want to find different ways that they can differentiate themselves. And so with that, we saw an opportunity there to really partner with them and, sort of demonstrate the value of a technology in that space. And then, sort of later on focus on sort of the more industrial and some of those larger machine tools OEMs that Prof mentioned earlier. So just looking ahead from what our operations are going to look like this year, we have going to come up with several big announcements, hopefully. Well, starting this week, actually, we were received an award from the NSF to do some research in collaboration with the University of Michigan. And we're also expecting to release a community-focused vibration compensation tool that will basically, sort of demonstrate our commitment to the sort of open source nature of the community. While later on in the year, we hope to announce our first, um, partnership with an OEM, and so hopefully by Q3 or Q4 this year, there will be a first commercially available printer that supports the Ulendo algorithm. So just wrapping up, what are we looking at as we sort of follow this trajectory going to the future? We're looking for some executive level talent that's going to help us, do some strategic sales and business development. We're also looking for control engineering talent that we can use to help scale the team and take on some of these new customers as we're gaining traction in the market. So, yep, that's it from our side.
That is amazing. I will give you your virtual clap right here. This is the part, everyone, where you have Q&A, and you actually use time perfectly within the 10 minutes. So that means we do actually have an extra 5 minutes for just any questions and comments, concerns on that. I would like to actually start off. I've definitely been taking a fancy into 3D printing and seeing all the different types of 3D printing that has been done, including even in steel and metal, and just where that's even going. What type of, I want to say, not products, but does is uh is this able to be used for even those types of 3D printers, the ones that print steel and everything, to actually make it faster, or is it just the plastic and certain elements of that?
Yeah, no, that's a great observation. Yeah, there is 3D printers for all kinds of materials. And the initial stage, we talked about our 1 to 2 year kind of early phase will be for the lower cost ones, we typically are used for plastic. But we had shown some pictures, but it wouldn't have been obvious from the pictures that there are some printers that are used for metal that we're actually already talking to those companies, because they do have the problem, but they tend to be at the higher ends. And so those will be in our next phase as we go to that next, level up. Then we start working with the ones that print metal.
Gotcha. And the filament, that was the word I was looking for, because that's the
Yeah,
word that's used. So I
right.
will open up the floor for anybody else. You haven't There's something that interests you or any questions that you may have.
I was curious if the software they're using, is this somehow manipulating the stepper motors that are associated with the 3D printer, and then why the 3D printed market? I mean, there's lots of CNC devices, right, that use stepper motors. I don't know. Have you explored other areas?
Yeah, I can answer that. So yes, you're absolutely right. So the software does indirectly manipulate the commands to the stepper motors, and that's how we're able to avoid vibration. So you're right. Now to your second question. So I mentioned in the story that actually our problem and this pain point came from when I worked for CNC. So I worked for a machine tool company that developed CNCs. Now, we decided strategically from a business point of view to go from the desktop, from the 3D printer to the CNC market. Even though the CNC market is bigger, but they're a bit more mature, and so they are not as quick to adopt new ideas and products. On the other hand, the 3D printing industry, like you saw in the graph, is growing very rapidly. And because of that, there is a lot of interest and just eagerness to try new things, because that's the only way you can create a competitive edge. And so we saw that as a very good entry point. And then as it gets more mature and we de-risk the technology, I think it will be right for the CNC market. I don't know, Sam, if you want to add anything to that.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, just from the perspective of, the more mature companies, they're looking at us sort of still as in the startup phase. And so for them, there's some risk associated with that. Um, so for us, right now it's just about, showing that, we're here for the long haul. We're demonstrating the efficacy of, the algorithm, and also the success of us as a business. And hopefully, with that, we'll be able to, exude some confidence and, penetrate that CNC market.
I have a question. When it comes to the software, how do you install it in the machine? I have no idea about 3D printing. I know what it is, but I know too little.
Sure. So, I mean, the shortest answer I'll give you. Right now, we're looking to work directly with the OEMs. So we provide them access via an API to interface with our software, and they can decide what is the best way to implement it with their range of services. One thing that we've noticed is that there's a lot more, while the industry started very open-ended, a lot of the OEMs are sort of taking this approach to close their ecosystems. And so we feel like this would be sort of the best model where we allow them to integrate with our software, and then they manage the sort of last mile of the implementation themselves.
So you're going to make money by giving them a license or access to the API to incorporate that into their clients' devices?
Yeah.
And how you're going to get money for each device they sell? Is royalties? How do you see it? Just a one-time fee?
Yeah, so it's going to be on a per licensing, licensing for device. We'll, probably do some type of estimation on numbers of devices that they're going to sell and charge them based on that. It's going to be sort of per device that they make. So if they make 5 different types of 3D printers, they're going to have to, license 5 different licenses for that. But that's generally the business model.
Okay, yeah, I think yeah, that is really important. And so you are not planning on having your own partnership with your own 3D printed device. You want to just focus on selling the software and making money that way, right?
Yeah, we don't want to. We don't really want to enter the hardware game. It's very competitive. There's not really a lot of money to be made. There are a lot of bigger companies with a lot more capital in that space. So the best play for us is really to focus on the software side of things. And we didn't really touch on it in this presentation, but we're hoping to have other products released that in the future that OEMs would be able to leverage in different ways. And even just looking at, coming back to the first question, the 3D printing market is very small, right? Our main goal is really to work with the bigger OEMs in the machine tool space. So this is more of a stepping stone and not necessarily our end goal.
Okay, how do you plan on protecting the software or doing like an IP protection, something like that? Because I say, okay, you create this software, but then someone may come and say, I may know how to do it myself, so I will create my own software. How do you protect the idea in a sense that makes you unique in the market?
Sure. So, I mean, there's 2 ways. So we have the technology itself has been patented in several countries. So we have that as a sort of a last resort legal protection.
Okay.
The algorithm itself is actually broken up into 2 pieces. So there's part of it that can run on the machine, but there's also a part that we plan on keeping very close to our chest, which is the actual process of calibrating the machines to work with our algorithm. So there's some layers of protection there, and even using the API, we don't necessarily have to expose our code to the OEMs that we work with. So there's levels of protection here that we can fall back on to keep our IP intact.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I think it will work great. Great.
Thanks.
We have 7 minutes for more questions. If anyone else has a question about this, about the amazing, and just to go back, because I know some people just entered in. We're dealing with Ulendo, dealing with 3D design, 3D printing software.
Yeah, I have another question. What happens is if the 3D printers improve and they solve this shaking problem and no longer need the software?
So,
or is not possible, like physically speaking?
No, I mean, I don't think that it's not possible, right? But there's a lot of work that went into creating the actual algorithm, and it's not an uncommon problem, right? There's a problem that affects basically all of the industries. There is sort of an inertia where larger manufacturers who like dominate the market, they don't need to, right? Because they sell all of the printers, they have a market dominant position. They don't need to innovate as much. But at the same time, you know, it's not necessarily a low barrier to entry to compete. So that is something that we have working for us. But we know that it's not an unsolvable problem. It's just that we're first to market with it. So we're trying to leverage that advantage as much as possible, and you know, really, you know, leverage that. The other part of it is that mentioned in our presentation, there are actually I forgot the name for it, but printers that print very fast, right? So they print typically like 10 times the speed of a desktop 3D printer. But even with those high performance printers, we're actually able to drive improvements, because even though they may have solved some problems or they use stronger stepper motors and things like that, our algorithm can still provide benefit even in those very high ranges of printers.
Okay.
And just to add, I mean, that's a great question. You can solve it. I think the solutions are somewhat obvious, I'm sure, to you. Is, you know, you can add more material and make it stiffer and stiffer, but you know it comes at a cost, which is you're carrying heavier weight, so you need bigger motors. So when you think of the cost benefit, then you can say, look, you have software, it doesn't add any extra weight, it probably costs less, and then it still gets you the same thing. So I think that's where we're kind of trying to play, that we know you can do that, but the cost of doing that sometimes is prohibitive, and then you go down. But the other thing Sam mentioned earlier is also that this is not our only trick, right? I mean, this is not our only software. We are working on machine learning algorithms. We're working on other things to detect faults and stuff. So we are planning to diversify our software portfolio so that we're not kind of depending on just this one thing as our source of value to our customers.
All right. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and another question about the API request. Is the machine, like, once the machine has the software, every time it prints, it has to make an API request?
No, so it would be more or less along the lines of when the G code, like after you do like the slicing of the, you know, whatever you're trying to print, it's at that stage there. So you could consider it like a post-processing of the slicer output, and then we develop the stepper commands basically from that file.
Yeah, because my question is, okay, you are creating a solution that prints faster. So most likely, the companies that are going to be willing to have this solution are companies that need to print a lot in one single day. So that means that if you're making API requests to your server, you have to have enough money to pay the cost of the bandwidth of sending and receiving the request, right? So I said, okay, maybe that could affect the amount of money you earn.
No, so I mean, in our gamed out scenarios, you know, I've priced it out. It's very low cost. It's be like cents, you know, for a request. It's not anything that will make a material difference in cost for us or for an OEM. So it's even a cost that to some extent we can absorb just based on the licensing that we plan to charge for the OEMs.
And I want to
Okay.
make, and sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure that Heinz got his question in before we move on to our next presenter, which is going to be you, Alejandro. Heinz.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I got on the meeting late because I understood from my invitation 7:30. Doesn't matter, I'm here now. So I missed the beginning of the presentation. Are you guys partnering with anybody? I'm thinking I spent over 30 years in the chemical industry. They are actively engaged in designing 3D printer machines, the software and materials to run on them. So are you partnering with anybody? I didn't hear that part of the presentation.
We're definitely open to partnering with people. We have several, at least a few 3D printing OEMs that have engaged us so far, but we're always looking for, more potential customers or opportunities to collaborate. So if you're, have those contacts and you want to give us a warm
What I'll
introduction.
do is during the next presentation, I'll send you a private message in the chat. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
And that is what these meetings are for. I love it. I love it. So if we have one more minute, but if we don't have any other questions, if you do, you can ask. But if we don't have any other questions, we can move forward.
Thank you so much for your question. Very, very, very illuminating. Thanks.
Yeah, I have one last question.
Okay, go.
My last question is, what is your exit strategy? What is a big company comes tomorrow and tells you, I want to buy your software, or your company, your whole company? What are you thinking about that?
This is a complicated question, but short answer is I think that we're not really looking for that short exit right now because there's so much opportunity sort of on the backside of what we plan to do. So if they're looking for a stake, sure, we'd be happy to talk with them if they want to do some very integrated partnership. We of course would be open to it. But we sort of want to have this company established sort of as an engine to keep commercializing things that are coming out of our research. So that's basically our strategy.
All right.
Well, what a perfect way to end this last question, because our next presenter is going to be his truly Alejandro. I put just a couple things that I was able to divvy up from your LinkedIn. Just having this entrepreneur innovator type mindset. I saw that you were pursuing a degree in economics, which is amazing. And you already have your BOA from Penn State University. I'm going to let you take it away, Alejandro. I believe I made you a co-host. Let me check just 1 second. No, I did not. I'm going to make you a co-host right now. And you can unmute yourself. And well, you're already unmuted. And here is your 10 minutes. So we should be ending the presentation at 7:50.
All right. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Here I have it. Do you see my screen? Or wait, yeah. Do you see my screen now? Wait 1 moment. I didn't find what I was looking for. Okay, here it is. All right. Okay, so do you see my screen now? Okay, so well, good evening. My name is Alejandro Jimenez. I am actually located, and I am right now in Miami Beach, Florida. Yeah, so I am the founder and CEO of Everest Master. Everest Master is a company dedicated to develop virtual engaging experiences. What we want to do is to develop solutions in the virtual world to overcome challenges in the real world. Everything started back in 2019 when I was studying online. I didn't like my experience. Mostly because I was comparing it with being in person and now being online. I wasn't able to make friends, meet my professors, etc. Yeah. So after a long research, I realized I wasn't alone. In other industries, on situations like online events, people were having the same problems. And I have laid out the 4 main problems here. It is hard to make connections with these online solutions. Users are not engaged. There is a lack of privacy for the conversations, and the environments of the appearance of these technologies are rudimentary. Part of the problem as well, as you already know, is that we went from being in face-to-face, making these meaningful connections with people, to being barely engaged in solutions like Zoom, where actually, based on a study by the National Institute of Health, 4 out of 5 people are not engaged in most conversations because they are doing something else. The following solution came to my mind: developing an amazing virtual world where everyone can meet, network, and belong to a community. A place where you can have a customized environment, enjoy engaging experiences, and have a live venue. If you are familiar with The Sims or Second Life or any other video game, you may already know how Everest Master will work. You have your avatar and you have a virtual world that you can explore, go from the beach to a meeting in your office or any place practically. So, and also what we want to do in the future in Everest Master is to make this more immersive experience by integrating it with Oculus VR, so you feel like you are inside the virtual world and you can forget about the real one for a moment. You may wonder why now is the right moment for a company like this. And to be honest, people are dying for human interaction, which translates to a great opportunity because there is a market boom for experiential services. People want new experiences all the time. And also, our company is sustainable and profitable. If we compare having an in-person event with a virtual, you will notice the difference very quickly. An in-person event can generate over 1 million kilograms of CO2 emission. You will spend countless hours planning, scheduling the trips just to go to the event. And then companies spend over $100 billion, or at least used to spend that, paying their employees to go to these events. With virtual solutions, it's different. So that's why Everest Master, I think, is sustainable and profitable. The CO2 emissions are minimum. The trip will be very short, just to your computer or your office, and companies will have more money to spend on their business success. In order to understand if we were in the right track, we have conducted a market validation by looking at similar companies that provide similar services to the ones that Everest Master wants to provide. One of those is ScienceSpace and the other is Virbela. They have hundreds or if not thousands of users in a weekly basis, and they have some important clients as well, including Virgin, Pearson, Stanford University, Berkeley, etc. The market size for virtual events is what makes Everest Master a great idea, or at least a company in the right time, in the right place. At this point, the market for virtual events is valued $78 billion, and it is expected to grow to $774 billion by the year 2030. So in between these years, if Everest Master is able to acquire at least 1% of the available market, we are going to be valuing $7 billion. This is a demo of our platform so you can better understand what we are doing. As you can see, you first create your avatar, you name it, you can customize it completely, and you can see how it looks like. Once you are done, you can run and explore the environment where you are, just get familiar with it. It's a social experience because you can share your webcam and speak with the microphone with people inside. You can have custom booths, like if you're in a trade show, and meet the vendors, exchange contact information, etc. You can have private conversations. You just get close to a person, sit in the chair, and you speak with the person in private, not having to someone else hearing your conversation you don't want. You can have live presentations, sharing your screen and your webcam in the same time, and you can connect to the internet. If you have anything online, you can share it inside the platform, or you can use apps like this board to teach math to kids, for example. All right, so we continue. Our solution is integrated with Google, as you already saw. You can use any apps from Google, and as well Google Slides, which is great because it gives you access to practically anything that already exists on the internet. So it brings an opportunity for integration. If you have a program that already works and you want to use it through a platform for any dynamic, team dynamic, or to study, you can do that. Our business model is the following. We provide a public space that is always free. Users can come at any time and get familiar with the platform. Then we want to sell the service of designing a custom venue to our new customers, where we can design this venue based on some examples they provide or a real building, and we can make it look very realistic. Then we want to charge like a subscription model. We want this customer to go into a subscription model, paying at least $2,000 per month to keep this venue live all the time. It can be used for working remotely as a team, as a virtual office, or to have a recurrent place for events. We also provide the service of organizing the venue for a virtual event, and it can have from 30 to 2,000 people coming to the event or more. Our marketing strategy is to promote the company through those virtual events, establish strategic partnerships with companies that are already working with companies that require services like the one Everest Master is providing, and then continue with direct and digital marketing. When it comes to competition, Everest Master is the company best positioned for success in the area of virtual events because we are events oriented and we provide a high engagement for the users. Our competition is somewhere else, and they focus more on meetings, or they either provide a low engagement experience. Well, our competitive advantage is that we are going to be the first virtual world created exclusively for online events. It's going to be easy to use, user-driven, optimized for communication, and provide engaging experiences. But that's not all. There is a world of endless possibilities of what can be done with Everest Master. We just not can we can offer more than just virtual events. You can have a virtual classroom, you can have a video game arena with people coming to watch a game together, or you can have a concert. If you can imagine it, then we can make it happen inside our platform. This is our team at this moment. We are four. You already know myself. We have here Nachiro Kuba, who happens to be my wife and also art director and co-founder of Everest Master. We have Chime, our Unity developer, and Goran, our 3D artist. We are interviewing at this time people for the CTO and the CMO position, because I think these are key pieces in our strategy to grow. When it comes to, well, I think this one we can skip, I guess. Well, thank you very much for listening to my presentation. And if you have any question, please let me know. I will be glad to answer.
All right, I'm going to do that virtual clap again. This is a very, very interesting perspective. I'm pretty sure we have some questions. You ended directly at 7:51, so that means we have 9 minutes for questions. So I guess I will start it off. First of all, I got the concept of your idea. I kind of got the gist of it. When you were labeling the prices of $1,500, is it what is the $1,500 basically for, like, if a company, if I want to say as a company and I wanted to build a building that represented my actual company in real life,
yes,
that's how much it would cost?
Yeah, that's the starting price. Yeah.
Gotcha. There's a couple other questions, but I definitely want to leave some room for everyone else. So please, you can unmute yourself.
We have a question.
Yeah.
How long would it take to make a venue design?
Depends. Our record have been 3 days so far. So it doesn't take that long if you work hard and you have all the team on it. It depends. It can be if it is a small venue or a large venue. It really varies.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, how do we ask? Do we just raise our hand?
Yes.
Yeah, very, very nice presentation and idea. I noticed you don't have gather.town. Do you know that company that does something similar, not as advanced as what you're proposing, but we're using it at the University of Michigan.
Which one?
Let me type in the chat window.
Yeah, I am aware of some other companies, but maybe
So
not.
they
Oh, this
have
one.
an avatar. So we're using it, for instance, when you're trying to get students to mingle and do something like that. So you set up a classroom and they can go and talk to each other and stuff. So you have an avatar, and then once you come closer, your video turns on, and then you can talk to the person and do private conversations and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
So,
this is so nice. I didn't know about this. This is
okay.
nice.
So it's sort of similar, but I think the kind of graphics and stuff that you're talking about is, I think, a couple of levels higher than this, but the general concept seems to be the same. And the kind of reviews we got from using it of Gather is very, very good. So I think that shows some promise in the direction you're taking. But
Oh yeah,
one question I have for you, my wife and I were talking about this, is COVID is going to end, right? Now,
yes.
I don't believe the world will go back to exactly where we were, but I think what is going to happen is that you're going to have a lot more hybrid events. Some people want to be in person, some people want to be remote. And I think that's where it gets really challenging, because I've tried, it's actually easier when everybody is on Zoom than when some people are in person and some people are on Zoom, because then the interaction becomes very weird. So have you thought about that possibility, if perhaps this direction is correct? And how can your platform evolve to accommodate a situation where an event is hybrid, partly in person, and some people are engaging virtually? Can you create a mixed reality?
Yeah, that's actually something we have been thinking of. There are a couple solutions there. In first place, we have to analyze if is that really a problem or not, because you can have the two versions. You can have people coming to one and the people coming to the one in person, one in the then people going to the virtual one, and they necessarily don't need to communicate with each other. Like you communicate with the people that are in your event, right? But if you are talking about connecting the virtual events with the one that is in person, I think the best solution for that is maybe some communication stations, some robots per se. I have been thinking about, like, we can put an iPad and then you speak, because all you need is a webcam, right? You need the webcam from the person in the event, and then you need the person on the other end on their computer. I think it's doable, but I don't think I don't well, it's not that I don't think, I don't know how practical it could be, but we have to think about that possibility as well.
That was interesting, because when you said that, I actually definitely did see that within a hybrid, and that was actually going to be one of my other questions is could this company, if let's say someone's having a live actual event, right? But you don't always want to go to the event, because that consists of getting up, getting in your car, driving all the way to the event, waiting in line, picking out your seat, all of those things. So it will be better for virtual. If let's say I know there's specific cameras where you actually place in a facility where you can get a full view that would help a VR reality, to where you could still be in the event or other people can utilize that thing. Would you ever consider, let's say your company actually, if I want to say an event wanted to say, hey, we want it to be in person and VR friendly, so so they could like go to your company, purchase whatever your services, and kind of like you send them that device to where they could interact virtually in that event.
Oh yeah, of course. We have think about it. I mean, when it comes to VR, what we have considered is most people don't have it at this point, so that's why we started providing this solution as a downloadable program for your computer. But and it's a big but. We want to partner with companies that provide these devices, so we can rent them or send them just as part of the service to our customers. as you are mentioning, like let's say they want to have an immersive experience, but they don't have the device, they don't even want to buy them, but we can send it to them as part of the service. Of course, it will be more expensive. But yeah, I mean, all of that is possible, and I don't see any difficulty for integration, because let's say you even can display the webcam inside the platform. We can have a screen where you get to see the real event, even if you are in the virtual event. It would be harder to be in the in-person event and see the virtual event unless you play it from a computer. But yeah, definitely possible, of course.
That is my question. Do we have anyone who has a last question before we enter into our final and last not producer, but presenter?
I have a random question. Alejandro, I mean, it's really cool, interesting stuff. Definitely a market for this. This year's CES, there were many companies that had virtual booths, and they've integrated essentially similar features to what you're proposing, which means it's timely post-pandemic. I don't know how it'll survive, but in any event, my curiosity is just the 774 billion dollar market size. Do you want to just sort of help us understand, why it's such a big market, and how you feel like it's almost $1 trillion worth?
Because of the opportunity cost, basically. I think that's how it was calculated. In first place, I got the data from 3 places that validated. So they their research companies, and I wanted to see if they were giving the same estimate, and they did. And I think it's because of the opportunity cost. If you consider how much companies spend on having these events in person, and there are many businesses that pay for these events because the business itself is providing events, and that's how they got the calculation, because that is what the market is willing to spend for having events, I guess. So yeah, I think that is part of the research, but I can fill you up with more details if you want. Yeah, I can give you the link so you can like kind of understand how they did it.
Oh, no worries. I was just curious. I think it just, anyone that sees a number that big might have a similar reaction. So as long as you have an answer for it, I suppose. In your shoes, I'd probably go with, what your market opportunity is, as opposed to opportunity cost for the industry, as a whole. But that's just what I would do. But it's a big number.
Yeah, I agree. It's really big, but I think that's why we play it safe with the estimation of acquiring 1%, because of course we are not no 100% of the people need this solution. So I think at least if 1% of that market need this solution, then we are giving the right estimate in terms of the possibility to grow.
Understood.
All right. So for the sake of time, it is going to be moving forward to our next presenter, which is Kabir. I believe I said that correctly. Give me a head nod if I did. Hopefully I did, sweet. Some information I pulled up about you. You know that you are the co-founder of Passive Boat. I understand that there's 2 companies, and I wanted to make sure that they were still listed, not knowing which one you were going to present about. But being just a creative and innovative engineer, we see that you have a dual master degree from Ross School and the business end of U of M. So I already gave you co-hosting privileges. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll let you take it away for the next 10 minutes. And there you are.
See my screen okay? Good.
Yes, but we see all your slides. I don't know if you want to put them. There we go.
Right. Presentation mode. Good. Okay. So yeah, I mean, thank you for the intro, Mike. I appreciate it. So it's actually a single company, Passive Bolt. Shepherd is just a product. That's the consumer brand of our product. I like to joke, think Apple and iPhone, but that's kind of the general concept behind Passive Bolt and Shepherd. Passive Bolt isn't really a consumer brand. Shepherd Lock is. In essence, Passive Bolt is a smart access platform. So basically creating both hardware and software as a service, mainly for enterprise customers. But of course, for early traction and to prove out our concept, we do have a product. We do have a flagship brand, which is Shepherd. There you go. So, the problem we're addressing essentially over the past 5 decades or so, home automation, home security companies have had really good success. Essentially what they've done is, sell security hardware and monitoring services. And that was okay until about recently with the new smart home trend that's disrupting that entire model, right? So, a fully automated home does not necessarily, someone that owns a fully automated home does not necessarily require subscription services for monitoring. Automating a home by default essentially gives you the ability to, review what's going on at your property, have door sensors that can report back to a control hub, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially what home security companies are doing is reinventing themselves as home automation companies. Essentially they're becoming system integrators, right? So they buy hardware, they buy, smart doorbells, smart thermostat, smart this, smart that, and they integrate them all into basically a suite of product that is for smart homes, essentially all labeled, right? So think ADT labeled products that they didn't make, they just purchase on a white label basis. But what they do own is the user experience at the end, right? So it's the ADT app and the ADT, marketing team that, scales and sells a product to the end consumer. In the end, the problem that they have now is that the smart lock, they cannot purchase on a white label basis. They can get all the other hardware, just not the lock. And that's because the industry is dominated by just a couple players that do not white label, period. Which is the first issue. Second is they don't want to make it in-house because that, they're not necessarily in the business of making individual hardware. They're just really looking to do, to sell the experience of a fully automated home, right? So it is a buy item for them, not a make item. It's just one feature of their portfolio. Now, on top of that, if you were to go, get off-the-shelf locks, they're not differentiated. They're essentially either a Kwikset or a Schlage or one of the dominant brands that you would add into your portfolio. You command next to no margins. We've confirmed this with just about every OEM that we've engaged. And it's long install times. Because they're not retrofit style, it means you're basically replacing the homeowner's entire lock set, which means you have to have a locksmith license. And that means all of your installation crew have to be trained, get those licenses and maintain them, which adds costs, and it's recurring training. And then finally, there's no backend integration. So there's no SaaS support for any of the off-the-shelf locks, which basically means if you're ADT and you put a lock into your portfolio, now you have to have engineers that spend a ton of time, over $5 million on average, the cost just to go through certification and onboarding for any smart lock that they add onto their portfolio. So our solution is a platform solution, aka both providing them with an award-winning hardware that they can brand and take to market, command higher margins. It is differentiated from off-the-shelf locks, so all of a sudden they've got really nifty patented features that only they offer, they being our customers. Super easy to install, installs in less than 5 minutes. It also unlocks DIY channels because it's retrofit. You don't have to replace the entire lock set. That eliminates the need for the locksmith license. It eliminates that cost and the recurring training necessary to maintain those licenses. It saves cost because you don't have to have a door sensor. That's one of our patented tech that's in the product, and it gives you an API access in the back end. So for their engineers to integrate it essentially into the ecosystem, it's just as easy as a few lines of code making API calls. No need to build an entire back end just to support a single SKU. Some of the benefits for the end consumer of our product is that because we came out of the automotive industry, my core team and myself, we've designed essentially keyless entry technology that's found in over 120 million cars now. That's the tech that allows you to walk up to your car, touch the door handle, it unlocks. If you have any kind of experience with that product, that's, our team started this project first on the Mercedes C-Class and then blew it up across vehicle brands. Same concept, homeowner comes home, they're able to touch their existing deadbolt once our product is installed inside, and it would unlock the door instantly, right? Once inside, they can touch the lock as well. Of course, when you touch it from outside, you have to have a virtual key, so locates that key, validates that it's you. If you're authorized, it unlocks. But it also saves you money. The lock essentially pays for itself within 18 months because most insurance companies would give you up to 5% reduction on your cost if you have a home security product, such as the Shepherd or any of our white label branded solutions. Reason being, we added security features that detect break-ins. An alarm goes off. You get a notification that comes to you. But of course, the point of the alarm going off is to ward off any kind of intruder. And again, this is all within the lock, which essentially means even decoupled with a home security system, the lock is perfectly capable of being able to detect both somebody picking the deadbolt or using brute force to break down the door, right? This is, again, first industry solution as well. That's a patented technology from us. I mentioned the door tracking technology. That's part of how we detect brute force detection, but essentially this is built into the product. So you no longer need to have door sensors that are nailed onto your door frame, which could be an eyesore for most homeowners. But on top of that, it is also an additional cost center, right? Because that's an additional piece of hardware that has to be sourced and installed at the consumer's home. And then finally, the end consumer would have cloud-based features such as remote control, logs management, which is what you would expect with just about every smart lock. That part's not necessarily differentiated. Installation, like I mentioned, super easy. Just remove the knob, install a bracket, put our module up. The cover is magnetized. You just snap it right on. It's easy. No locksmiths needed. You can, our OEM partners can even drop ship these in a DIY channel. So far, we're currently doing pilots with over 7 OEMs. Some of the companies, we've partnered with, signed partnership agreements with include companies like Xfinity and most recently Schlage. That's lifetime account value so far in our funnel of over $2 billion with a potential monthly of 28 million. But again, like I said, the focus for us being B2B does not negate the fact that we do have a consumer brand, which is Shepherd Lock. And with Shepherd, we've started production. That's just sort of a flagship to get into market. We're using Shepherd produced units to drive B2B pilots. So all of our B2B customers that I'm showing, we've shipped and delivered Shepherd Locks to as a mean of essentially getting through the pilot approval process before we start scaling them as individual accounts with their own labels. Our distribution for Shepherd Lock includes places like the Home Depot that we signed a deal with, Amazon, etc. We started production in the fall of 2020. We're slowly ramping up. We're currently out of units, so we sold roughly over 100K plus units on shepherdlock.com. But we've obviously plastered on our website that we're on back order. That's because because of COVID, there's been obviously major challenges for hardware companies when it comes to supply chains. So as we get inventory and scale up our production, we'll continue to grow these numbers. Our goal for the year is to be north of $2.5 million in revenue. Just quickly on our go-to-market strategy, Shepherd Lock, that's our phase one. What it allows us to do is essentially enter the market without needing a B2B partner, for one. For two, it allows us to prove concepts, allows us to learn a ton more from our end consumers. It allows us to use those units to drive B2B pilots, which is our next step here for OEM integration. And then beyond that, our goal, our path to scale is essentially doing the white label hardware to these OEMs so that they can essentially label them, take them to the end consumer. We provide them those API services in the back end, which would be recurrent revenue for the company. And the purpose of that is so they don't have to spend time designing product-specific, hardware-specific API endpoints that we could develop and manage on their behalf. Every front door in the United States comes right about $27 billion with a $1.6 billion worth of recurring revenue. However, we're squarely focused on, out of the gate, just on, the ones that we can target mainly through home automation channels. So $12 billion worth of full hardware costed market size with $720 million in recurring revenue potential. how it stacks up. Some of you probably are aware of some of the products out there, but essentially, with our solution, you're able to get unique features such as the only retrofit where you can have a touch from outside, but touch from inside as well. I did erase and messed up my check marks, so, but it's okay. Just I'll verbalize the differences. Essentially, so anything from touch inside down is only a check mark to passive bolt. So essentially the ability to detect all the security threats that I mentioned and freeze the deadbolt is proper to proprietary technology from us, the built-in door status, the interior touch with the smart cover IMSC design, etc. All of these features that I just described are fully patented. Both patents have been granted by the USPTO, and we're prosecuting internationally as well as we speak. 2 families mainly to cover the key detection. That's how you locate the key in front of the home, essentially, to make sure that whoever is being authorized is standing in front and outside of the door. The touch detection on a retrofit basis, the temper detection we talked about, deadbolt deactivation, which essentially freezes the deadbolt, which is the first time in 150 years since the deadbolt has been around that somebody's able to stop and block lock picking, right? Somebody attempts to pick the deadbolt, we just freeze the lock essentially until they stop, right? And then the built-in door position sensor that I mentioned, which essentially has the ability to track the door with high resolution. Currently, state of the art is you get a binary, with the door sensor that's outside of the product, you get a binary position, which is it a line, is it not a line? For the tech-minded folks in the audience, that's essentially using a Hall effect sensor to check for alignment, which has about a 15 degrees margin of error. With our technology, it's all built in. We're tracking it to the degree. So we have a 1 degree margin of error, essentially. So that's highly precise because when you want to issue a remote command to lock your home, you want to make sure that your door is shut and the deadbolt's extended. You don't want an app showing you that the deadbolt's extended and telling you the door is locked. But if that door was cracked or ajar and your door sensor that's not built in can detect that, you have a full sense of security because you believe your door is locked, but it really isn't. And then finally, the team, myself, coming out of Continental Automotive, where we first designed this technology, along with some of my core team members, such as Simon, who also, was a software manager on the same, essentially similar feature technology that we developed in vehicles, with Tom, who was our sales manager back at Continental, did over $250 million worth of automotive sales for the automotive version of this technology. Spun out of Continental as a standalone entity, fully divorced from the parent corporation. We've launched about 2 years ago now, a little bit shy of that, and joined by Mike and Sheena with tremendous hardware and marketing experience. So our goal essentially is to take this core solid team. We've added resources beyond, but just to scale the company over the next 12 to 24 months. What I'm looking for, really looking for somebody that is well networked with some A-listers. Reason being is we want a brand ambassador for Shepherd Lock. So part of the reason I'm here today, beyond listening to all great ideas from the community and networking, is to see if there's anybody that's got some connection to some A-listers that might have an interest in becoming a brand ambassador for a product. That's all I have.
I will give the virtual clap right there. There is clearly a huge market, I'm pretty sure, as you know, and as you've been experiencing for this. Before I say anything, I'll open up the floor. Any questions, any comments about the product in general?
Yeah, I have nothing. Yeah, I think you are like, you have the experience and you have everything figured out, at least it seems to me like that. I was wondering what was your challenge while you came here, but I got it at the end. So yeah, I think it's great. I really appreciate your presentation. I enjoy it. And I think you are up to something great.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you, Alejandro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, same here, right? I mean, it's really very interesting technology that definitely seems to be making it out there. A question I had was so you're not using a Hall effect sensor. How are you sensing the full angle of the door is, do you have some kind of encoder, or what's that?
Yeah, so we're using it's super redundant. So what we've done essentially is, when the product is installed, we ask the user to do a simple calibration, which is open the door and then close it back up. What we do is essentially we're measuring, let's say the way the spring latch effect of the door onto
Mhm.
the door frame, right? So we measure the acceleration peaks essentially when for the closure. That's one. Two, we use an angular velocity chip essentially to collect data, and then we use that to do live computation. So basically just double integral, right? To figure out exactly how fast it's moving. And we're able to essentially track and compute resultant angles from that. So with the angular velocity, you're able to track it everywhere it is, right? And you're able to compute how far it's moved. But with the closure, you're able to detect a close event, for one. For two, we added capacitive sensing on the strike plate itself. So when you install the product, we essentially take over the deadbolt strike plate and use it as a sensor just by metal connection through the screws. And that allows us to sense the building itself. So when you close it shut, we detect the capacitance associated with the door frame as well. That creates a second data point in our algorithm for knowing when you hit the door frame. And then three is when you open it and you leave it at rest, right? And that's just an accelerometer. So essentially, if you open and just pause, we have to filter out the noise because the angular velocity chip would drift as you would expect. So to eliminate that drift, we're essentially just telling the algorithm, okay, now we just basically keep adapting and filter out noises and stay out of new home, right? I hope that kind of makes sense. So all of those things combined essentially are what we're using. We're calling them indicators, but all those indicators are what we're using to create a highly robust way of detecting the door moving, stopping anywhere, and also closing.
Really cool. Thanks.
Anyone else? Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have another question more on the business side. So you have your B2C strategy and direction, and you have your B2B. Aren't you creating a competition for your business partners by having that? Like, I guess you have a good reason for that, but it seemed to me like you're creating competition for your business partners.
Yeah, so the goal for Shepherd Lock is not to cannibalize sales for our B2B partners, which is why we will and always, we are and always will be priced a lot higher. Shepherd Lock is just meant to drive the innovations that we generate. So for instance, as Gen 1 scales for B2B customers, Shepherd Lock would move on to Gen 2. For our Gen 2, which we just won the CES 2021 Innovation Award for, essentially just adds facial recognition to the current design with some additional tweaks that are not worth mentioning. But essentially, it's touch plus facial ID. Apple technically trademarked Face ID, so we're going with facial ID. So you walk up, it recognizes your face. If it's authorized, you're just touching your deadbolt, and it would unlock, right? So that is where we would transition to, so that we leave that space of the Gen 1 to our B2B partners. The goal is not to ever cannibalize their sales.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
So do you have B2B partners now? And yeah, how is that going? And what are the challenges with the B2B partners? What do they need from a company like you?
Yeah, so I mean, we have, I think I showed a few logos earlier, but just refresh a couple. So we have Schlage, which is a global lock company, one of the big three lock companies. We have Xfinity, ADT, etc. So all those companies, are currently using our units on a pilot basis. So I guess as far as experience working with them, well, big companies, big challenges, different motivation, different motivators from different business units. But overall, it's been a very good, positive feedback. As far as challenges, I'll say we are not able to answer some critical questions yet, such as, hey, we want to understand what your return rate would be like for this product. We want to understand any kind of issues you may have had in the field, what you learned from it and how you iterate it. We can't answer those things yet because we're just in the process of ramping up Shepherd Lock. And that's part of the reason we created Shepherd anyway, because we anticipated that to get an MOQ of 50,000 units from Xfinity, we have to answer those basic questions, right? So our goal is to, while they're working with, in Philadelphia with our pilot units, we will continue to scale Shepherd Lock and collect enough, end consumer data to be able to essentially adequately answer those questions before we get to, how do we scale up type conversation with them.
Are there, for your consumer product, do you find it challenging with such a small team? I gotta imagine like there's like a tech service for install, a lot of questions. I mean, how do you guys handle all that stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not necessarily, it's definitely not the easiest thing, I would say. So yeah, the core team, the 5 that you saw, are supplemented with several interns and 1099s that we use from time to time to give ourselves bandwidth, so that we're able to do so much with so little. But yes, in the long run, we definitely recognize the need, which is why we're planning a Series A within this year. We recognize the need to grow the team and be able to take the pressure off some of our team members. I will not deny that most of us work more hours than we would like to continue working in the long run. So it's definitely been very challenging, but we're managing okay so far.
That makes a lot of sense. We have 5 more minutes from any other questions. And I was thinking, before anyone speaks, I was thinking like, that's the reason why they created Shepherd, is because they needed to not just have data to go to their main goal, which is the B2B, but they needed to see, first of all, how it worked, how people would interact with it. And I'm with Xfinity. I kind of moved my whole life over to Xfinity. And within recent of Xfinity Mobile and our Wi-Fi and everything. And I noticed that they are building out their home, their Xfinity home type package. Is that where your passive boat is going to be trying to enter? You said that they're in their trial stage when you're with them. What does that mean? And how far do you have to go before Xfinity is willing to, or say, does that depend on how far Shepherd goes before Xfinity's like, hey, let's bring you aboard to make this home package that we're trying to create complete?
Yeah, that's right. So, short of disclosing any confidential information, we have been invited by Xfinity for that RFQ that you just mentioned, which is for that specific, front entry package. Xfinity's, and well, let me take a step back. So broadly speaking, not to name any logos or companies, home automation companies, generally speaking, which there are business units at Xfinity that are home automation focused. So that's Xfinity Home, to be specific. They're essentially, just considering the home as the next frontier for bringing the consumer, every aspect of consumer life online, right? And the battle here is who is going to own that user experience, right? Our goal is not to compete with that bit. Our goal is to enable all these companies to essentially have that one feature, which is access control, added to that user experience. So as Xfinity continues to develop that over the next 12 months, which is this long phase pilot that they're conducting, our goal would be to succeed in essentially convincing them that not only is the Shepherd Lock technology a great fit for what they're doing, but we've done 12 months worth of integration with their team. So their entire ecosystem can speak to our product, which we've completed and we're certified by them. And also the fact that, through hopefully our success this year with Shepherd Lock, that we would be able to share data and information to be able to support the conversation along the lines of, what they expect in a field environment, which currently we cannot answer, but I hope by the end of this year we can answer. And so long story short, to your last question, which was, you know, how long do you think until you could start scaling with Xfinity? We're hoping by the end of this year.
I like that. To follow up that question, when I think of access to doors, so first of all, when I first was looking at your company, I was like, so what about the people who have two locks? You know, the locks on the door handle as well with that. So I guess that's a question in of itself. But I automatically think of, I'm like, all right, come on. You got the door finger thing. What also about Ring, right? Google Nest. How do you see there to be the connection with Passive Boat? Have you attempted to try and go to them? Is there like, because I just see kind of that like it would only make sense. And I know ADT has their own thing as well, which you presented. But have you thought about like how could Ring or Google Nest or could this technology also be coupled in with them?
Yes, so Ring is a natural fit for us as far as customers go.
Natural.
Some early conversations late fall. So we're going to continue to develop them as a customer over the next several months. I think at the moment we have enough B2B partners in our pipeline for our size. Our team is over leveraged. So our goal is really to work to convert, you know, just one or two, and that will allow us to hit our financial goals anyway. But we definitely welcome the conversation with Ring as they explore how to add a lock to their portfolio. Google Nest has exited. I'm assuming you're not aware of it yet, but Google Nest is essentially acquired by ADT at this point. So Google is basically recognize that companies like ADT that are transitioning into full home automation as a sole focus are a better fit to essentially go after the market. So Google just bought a percentage of ADT, and as part of that deal, handed over control of Nest products.
That makes sense. And I guess to go back to the first question, what about the people who have two locks? Like the people who, you know, like the door handle, how does that?
Correct. So that's a really good point. So, you know, most smart access solution only apply to the single cylinder deadbolt. If you have a lock on your handle and you lock it, there's no solution on the market at the moment that would address that. The reason being is, you would essentially have to come up with a two-tier system, two separate actuators that are wirelessly coupled in order to have both of them unlock, right? That's complex, and it's just not something that the industry is investing in as a whole. And it's also something that we are not investing in at the moment. If you wanted to have remote command, you wanted to have connectivity, the single cylinder deadbolt is really the focus. And that typically is where most of the security is anyway. Your handle, I can, pop it open with a credit card. All of us can, essentially. So it's really doesn't provide that much security to begin with. The deadbolt does, is the primary source of security. And so, yeah, I don't think it harms us for ignoring it, given that the entire market has chosen to ignore it as well.
Well, it is 8:30, everyone. If there are no more questions, we do have question and comments just for DNU Tech in general. We do this every first Wednesday. So if we are, I'm pretty sure there's a couple people who would like to stay in contact with others. Please don't be afraid to direct message them, direct chat. You can do that now, saying, hey, I want the connection. Hey, I want to connect, want to make sure we're still in good hands. We have an amazing presenter. So again, the virtual clap for all of you. But to be respectful of everyone's time, it is 8:30 p.m., 8:32 p.m. Eastern Standard over here. Alejandro, I think it's still 8:32 over there, but in the beautiful land of Miami or down in Florida. So any closing? So my closing remarks is thank you everyone for being able to present. There is a lot of amazing information that I gained. 3D printing, literally living in a virtual world to connect, and then finding the better way to secure the home. I think all of these are definitely useful, not just to B2B. I'm pretty sure we always have sometimes that miscommunication when we say BDBs, B2B if you say it a lot. But that is all for here on D New Tech. So to respect everyone's time, I am done. So thank you for attending. And again, our next D New Tech will be available on March. I'm figuring the actual date. Yep, March 3rd. So, all right.
Thank you, everybody.